bhajans given here, and some smaller, some longer. And the reason I put all of them is not that we'll get through all of them, but just so that you have them, and for those who want more information on Satsangha, I've also given the website where there are 400 documents for free download under the knowledge-based section, articles, Christology, and many of the research papers, most of them. You just type in a search term and you will understand. So the bhajans, the first one is to Ganapati, so we will try Ganapati. And this will be responsive singing, so I will sing and you sing in response. And we try to make music as much as possible. And hopefully it will not be generated with noise. And I don't think it will, because you are all exceptionally good. Okay, so you can take heart from that intended compliment. Yes. Gauri Nandana Gajavadana, Gauri Nandana Gajavadana, Gauri Nandana Gajavadana, Gauri Nandana Gajavadana, Ganesha Vadha Mampahi, Ganesha Vadha Mampahi, Ganesha Vadha Mampahi, Ganesha Vadha Mampahi, Gajamukha Gajamukha Gananadha, Gajamukha Gajamukha Gananadha, Gajamukha Gajamukha Gananadha, Gajamukha Gajamukha Gananadha, Ganesha Vadha Mampahi, Ganesha Vadha Mampahi, Ganesha Vadha Mampahi, Ganesha Vadha Mampahi, Gajanana Gajanana, Gajanana Gajanana, Gajanana Gajanana, practicing. I'm trying to find another word that you have to practice. Well, down the line, there is on page 6 at the top, a very nice button, Swamiji writes, He Jagabandhan Devaki Nandan, Alak Niranjan Hare Hare. It starts off as a phrase to Lord Krishna, son of Devaki. Then we add Krishna, Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We have Namo Narayanaya Vishnu, Namo Durgaya for the mother goddess, and Namah Shivaya for Lord Shiva. So we will try this out. I want to catch you at some point, okay? How to get you? Yeah. Yeah. Jagabandhan Devaki Nandan, Hey Jagabandhan Devaki Nandan, Hey Jagabandhan Devaki Nandan, Hey Jagabandhan Devaki Nandan, Alak Niranjan Hare Hare, Alak Niranjan Hare Hare, Alak Niranjan Hare Hare. Shiva.
Wait till we dance.
Yeah. On page 7, at the end, there was a very beautiful, just 2 lines. It's a very nice song saying, sing the name of Hari or Vishnu as Krishna and as Madhava, Keshava, different names of Lord Krishna. Each name has its own meaning, and I don't want to spend my time now talking, we are singing. But each name is a quality of the divine. It's not just another label, but it's a quality that we want to invoke. And by invoking it, we evoke those qualities in ourselves. And this I will continue once we have finished singing, and we will continue on invocation and evocation. Remind me in case I forget. I remember this song used to be my favorite as a small kid. And when my mother was in London with me, we actually had a countess hosting us, and she believed small kids should be disciplined. And so there's a beautiful photo of me with one of these type of things around my neck and her holding the other end. That's why I wear this to remind myself. Be under control. Quite a character. She was in London and hosted every major yoga teacher who used to pass through London in those days. And it was her house was the stop for everyone in those days. But she thought I'd never grow up. She was going to be a midget. Not too bad, okay. And but there is this beautiful photo of me with one of those woolen caps, which is so tiny, and standing, waiting for a bus or something. I can't imagine that being the ridiculous today. But in those days, when this song was sung, I used to enjoy it, and I used to be dancing around, and I thought bold meant a bowl. So a bowl of porridge. Having bowl to sing.
Very bold.
So whenever I hear this bhajan, I'm reminded of those days. This is the Chitra Prana Vayu, converting certain impulses up into thoughts. Catching them from some corner in my head, wherever they are, and putting them up. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Hari Bol.
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 Keshava Madhava Govinda Bol.
Keshava Madhava Govinda Bol.
Keshava Madhava Govinda Bol.
Keshava
sing. There is great power. One of the reasons is that you do not chant in the past, you do not chant in the future, you chant in the present. And this is why when I embarked on a project to chant the Yoga Sutras many years ago, thanks to a very beloved student of ours, Sangeeta, who I hope to meet on Friday. It was a very big revelation actually to realize what power that chanting could produce by being in the present moment. And I did something which I would not do again. Is that I invited 3 dynamic ladies to chant with me. The CD is wonderful, the chanting is wonderful. There is one part of the CD that I chant the entire Yoga Sutras. Then there's another part where I chant and they respond. And it's a very beautiful learning tool. And then the sound engineer said, well, we have some more space, so we put on 108 Om chants. But I still remember having these 3 dynamic energies, and I just thought it would be nice, and all 3 of them are good chanters. One was Sangeeta herself, one was my wife, Devasena, and another beloved student who's on her way to see her son in the USA, Meena. And I never really realized the amount of power that could be generated by this chanting in a closed, small studio room until lunch break. And there was just so much energy that there was this loud explosion between these 3 women. And there was an actual amazing moment there, where actually, for no reason whatsoever, there was this huge fight that erupted. For no reason at all, the moment we went out for lunch break. And then it hit me, I said, oh, how stupid I have been, thinking we are just going to go and record a chant. And then I realized, oh my God, how ignorant I was. The power of this chant is just so much. And I thought we were just recording a chant. I had a lot of experiences with that recording. one of my favorite babies that now the company even has on I believe it's on an application also, you can download on your mobile or things like that. He's a nice businessman. He takes care of that part. Why do we chant? Because it pulls us into the now. Ada yoga anushasana yoga chitta vritti nirodha tadarveshtu swarupe avastha vritti sarupyam mitaratva vrittayah panchatayah kleshta kleshma pramana viparyaya vikalpa Nidva Smridaya pulls us into the moment. No past, no future. We are just there. When you chant, these concepts come alive. And if yoga is not living in you, it's not yoga. Often people wonder whether I'm talking of another person when I talk about yoga in the sense of a living person. That is the power of the chant. Because what do these chants do? When you chant, you are performing an invocation. You are invoking something. We were chanting the Gayatris, we were chanting the other mantras. Now we were singing. We are invoking something. But it's not a one-way street. What you invoke comes back to you like a boomerang as evocation. You perform an invocation that results in the evocation of that which you invoked in you. Remember when you said Prachodayate? You are invoking Ganesha and evoking the qualities of Ganesha in you. These are called latent potentials within us. Now, for many years I didn't know about this until in 1999 I joined the hospital to work with my research mentor. And he was saying something, I didn't understand what he was saying. I'm one of the few people who understands him. Okay? Most people cannot understand what he says because he speaks so fast. And he has a very typical way of speaking. And the other problem is that because he doesn't like to listen to his wife, he has turned off the feminine frequency in his hearing. So he hears very well, except when women talk to him. It's quite amazing, I tell you seriously. If you don't believe these things, you should actually come and see. And I've seen so many of the lady professors come in and try to talk to him, and he's like, nah. Like she's saying that, okay, yeah, no problem. Exact frequency. He was saying something about potentials, and I'm like, what is that? He took me into his neurophysiology lab. And in that lab where the neurological aspects of physiology are studied, I came to know of something which since then has been a very important part of my understanding. And it is called evoked potentials. A potential that you evoke through sensory stimulation. So, different parts of your brain, for example, the back of your brain, the occipital cortex, is where I am seeing all of you. Okay? There are areas here that enable me to hear you. There are somatosensory areas going here, which enables me to feel what I feel, the sensory stimulus. And what they do is that they wire the person up. They put wires. And you can pick up the electrical activity in the brain resulting from certain sensory stimulation. So if you have connected the occipital area and you have the person see something, you pick up the electrical activity when they see it. If you connect the auditory areas and you have them hear something, you pick up the activity induced, evoked by their hearing something. And if you go to the sensory region, the sensory motor regions, the three central areas, you pick up the sensations, you give them a sensation to the fingers or the toes or whatever, and you actually pick it up. The electrical changes that are occurring at the cellular level in the brain are picked up. Now science has to make it very boring, especially medical science. In fact, all the interesting things I know about medicine I picked up after coming out of medical school. Not during medical school. They really make it, they really make you come out and you learn very interesting things like all your energy comes from your mother. You know the mitochondria that are in your cells, the powerhouse of your cells. All the mitochondria you have come from your mother's side, not your father. So whether you have energy or not, give credit or blame your mother. The mother's side, Shakti. That's why Indian culture calls the woman Shakti. What is Shakti? Energy, power. I never knew that. A single professor in a single lecture talked about that in 5.5 years of medical school. And I'm like, what did they talk about? I'm trying to remember. I talk about it to the kids when I meet them in medical school. I say, at least let me try to give them some interesting bits. A lot of these small things. Now you know what they do is that in the lab, they make you sit in front of a black and white TV where, you know the chessboard in black and white squares? They put an image with black and white squares and you are supposed to watch that for 5 minutes while they record your visual evoked potential. It's like they put on Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck cartoons at least. It has to be this standardized stimulus, black and white boxes. Okay, let us hope that the auditory will be better. Yes. Tip, 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 tip. I went through all of this because I wanted to know, what they were doing in the lab. So, a good scientist always becomes guinea pigs first because then you know what you're putting other people through. And I feel that's ethically and morally very important that we first be the subject of all the experiments before we put others into it. And I followed one of my seniors in that who would always do it. Every time he tested a patient, he would first test himself. And that was actually a very wonderful man. Sensory stimulus, again, you'll have a nice, beautiful girl, hold your hand or something. No. It's an mild electrical shock to your fingers, and it's not painful, but it's unpleasant, okay? But from all of this, what I actually got is the same way your visual area, your auditory area, your somatosensory areas respond to these stimuli, you actually also create a response, an evoked response when you chant. Another example I'll give you. When you say a word, not only are you saying the word, but by saying it, you are bringing into your mind a mental image of that thing you are saying. When I say donkey, now that we are on donkeys this trip, when I say donkey, there is a mental image of a donkey that immediately flashes, and because of that image, certain activity is induced in me, evoked in me. And this is why we have to be very careful, because when we call other people stupid, we are also evoking stupidity in ourselves. And it's actually very interesting what we are doing. We only look at it one way. It's actually, you have to be very careful what you say. And when you tell somebody else, hi, beautiful, you are actually evoking beauty in you. One has to be very careful here, because this is the power of what we call nama and rupa. Nama is name or sound. Rupa is form. And they go like that. When you say a name, you are invoking a form. And this is this power of invoking. So what we do with the mantras is not just, oh God, save me. No. We are invoking Ganesha so that the Ganesha potential in us gets awakened, gets evoked. Now, the more you realize this, the more you start to go into silence. You stop talking like me. You actually. And this is why I love the music, because for me the music is a way that I'm able to evoke some very amazing places inside. Places that words don't do it. I have tried. Words don't do that. There's a beautiful raga. Raga is a combination of melodies. It's not a melody, it's not a tune. It's like a combination of melodies that makes up a form. And my music master, he was actually quite an enlightened music master. He used to say, when you sing a raga, it's as if that deity is in front of you and you are visualizing that deity, what type of ornaments the deity has, what type of dress the deity has, what type of look is on the face, what is in the hands, what is the body position, what is the movement, what is the activity. That is what you're doing. It is not just making music in the sense of something that sounds good. You are actually, the Chitra Pranavayu, that type of thing. You are actually inducing something. There's a beautiful raga called Hamsa Dvani, supposed to be the sound of the swan. Now, the problem is, practically speaking, swans have horrible sounds. So this is not again the Hamsa Dvani, the Hamsa, the swan. It means that Hamsa is telling you today of the realized one. It's the music of the highest consciousness, not the swan as such. Because it's quite funny when we say, because it's a beautiful raga and it doesn't honk at all. Okay? It's a bit funny when we think about it. It just has 5 notes. Normally we use 7 notes, but this has 5 notes. Sa, sa re ga pa, sa re ga pa ni, sa re ga pa ni sa, sa ni pa ga ni pa ga pa ga ga sa, ga 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 sa ni pa ni, ga ga sa ni sa sa sa, ga ga sa ni sa sa sa, ne sa ni sa 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 ni sa 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 ni sa ni, ga 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 ba ga sa ni ba ni sa ga ba ni ne ba ga ga sa sa ga ba ni sa 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 ni sa sa ni ne 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 ga sa ni ba ni sa ga 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 sa ni ba ga ba ga 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 sa ni re sa ni sa 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 ni ba ni ne ne ba ga pa pa ga 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 sa ni ga ga pa pa ga ne ne ba sa sa ni re sa ni sa ga ba sa ni ba ni sa sa ni sa sa ni sa sa ni ni sa sa ni sa sa ni sa sa ni ne re 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 ga 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 sa ni ba ni sa ga pa ga sa ni ba ga 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 ba ba ni sa sa ni ga ga re ga ga ba ba ni sa sa ni That's just an exploration of the notes that are there. Just within that. And absolutely it has to be spontaneous. None of this is pre-created. Those moments where you are totally in the now. There is no what happened before, there is actually no what happened after. It is just in the mode where you are. See, this is what chanting does. This is what music can do. And this is why when we chant, we need to focus our mind where we are. Now, I wish I could say this happens in modern India, but it doesn't. And so we have people who know the chanting. They have been trained from the childhood in chanting. They are professionally supposed to chant in temples. But the problem is their mind is not there. And as I said this morning, where the mind goes, there the energy flows. And so they say, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Virudhaya Namaha, Om Kanyaya Namaha. You know, this is going on, this is going on, this is going, this, but what has happened, this has become a purely conditioned response. This and this, and the mind is thinking, what's for lunch today, what's for dinner today, what's the latest movie on today? Hey, did you get the flowers today? Did you do that today? Hey, what about my scooter? Did you send it to the servicing center? Om Ganeshaya Namaha. One has to be very careful. And this is why one has to constantly be lifting the bar. The same thing about asana. You have to constantly be lifting the bar. The same thing about the philosophy, the psychology of yoga. You have to constantly be stretching. Little more today than it was yesterday. Little more this evening than it was this afternoon. That's really a constant. And that is why the moment we say, I know it all, that is the moment we stop doing. Please define solar being. We, human beings, have forgotten what it is to be, and we have become human doings, thus forgetting our essence, that is to be in the present moment. A being is one who is in the present moment. Now, how can you be in the present moment? You are in the present moment when you have a sense of connectivity. And a solar being is one who has a sense of connectivity with the solar system in which we live through the solar plexus that is our psychic umbilical cord with the universe. It is very interesting that the physical umbilical cord is also very close here. And that what we have as a navel is actually the original umbilical cord that connected us to the physical mother. And it is the Manipura that is the psychic umbilical cord that connects us with the universal mother. Remember, Prakriti is mother. Purusha is father. Father is just there. Mother is doing everything. The usual story. We were talking about that in dinner. A solar being is one who is connected to the solar system in which we are living. Now, if we were in a different solar system, a different other system, maybe there would be another term for it, but we are part of the solar system where the sun, as ancient Indians knew, Indians never had a problem thinking, everything went around the earth. They never ever had that problem. It's quite astonishing. Right from the start, sun was the master of the Navagraha. The 9 celestial abodes, the 9 celestial houses, the celestial influences, however you want to term it, of which 5 are planets and 2 are the sun and the moon, and then you have the 2 non-physical psychic influences on the earth, Rahu and Ketu. That's a separate lecture on its own. The sun is the center. Even today in Indian temples, if you go, the sun is in the center of this 9 and the other 8 are around it. And they keep on shifting it depending on what's happening. It's quite amazing. The sun is the source. And in fact, one of the 12 names of the sun is Hiranya Garbha, the golden bioplasm. And this again goes in tune with what science says, how life formed through solar energy and that type of stuff. It's actually very interesting. Hiranya Garbha, the golden germ plasm, bioplasm. It's translated as the golden womb. It's not the same, it's bioplasm. It's the plasm from which life originates. The sun connection. Now, on top of this psychic connection, there is a very, very, very direct connection, and that is through our neuroendocrine system. Our pineal gland and the rest of the endocrine glands are all photosensitive. They are supposed to have light, not this type of light. Sun. And the more we get that, the more healthy they are. The less we get that, the less healthy they are. And once your pineal gland starts to go out, congratulations, the rest of you is going to go out quite soon. And in so many people, the pineal gland has issues. In fact, it's not working properly. We talk about calcification of the pineal gland. And in fact, one of the things that I've recently come to know is the fluoride that we use, that it again is part of this stuff of blocking of the pineal gland. We keep on finding new ways to kill ourselves. The pineal gland, as my father would say, once upon a time was our third eye of the back of the head. And why did we bring it back in? Well, because people kept on poking it. That's as good a reason, okay? People will spend $1 billion on research and come up with a reason like that. So you might as well save that money and find the reason straight away. As a medical student, we never studied the pineal. Again, one of those very funny things. Because it would never be asked in the exam, so why should I study it? Very simple logic. The moment you start to give a short note in medical exams on the pineal, we'll study about it. We study the pituitary, we study the thyroid, we study the adrenals. Another thing we didn't study, thymus. Again, no short note on thymus. And then you come out and you find out thymus is more important and the pineal is more important than the rest of them put together. You don't learn it. So this connectivity of the pineal our neuroendocrine system with the light implies that we have some relationship with the sun. And if we can attune ourselves to the way the sun shines on us. Now it's a bit difficult in some of the northern climates, but it's much easier in the tropics to align yourself with getting up when the sun gets up and going to bed when the sun goes down. So it's a bit easier in places like India. And maybe that's why many of the rishis stayed in India and they didn't go to Alaska. Because they said, if we go there, we'll not be able to do our Surya Namaskar. So they wanted to do the Surya Namaskar. And that is why yoga has Surya Namaskar. We are connected with our solar system. We have that solar energy within us. And the more we connect, the more we manifest our solar beingness. And when we don't manifest it, different parts of us that depend on that connectivity start to atrophy, and then we start to have so many problems that we have today. Yeah. Are the messages we receive, are they downloaded from other universes? Okay. What is beyond our universe? Well, it's an interesting question, because from the yogic perspective, all the universes, how many ever they are considered as one. So the yogic perspective is there is one Prakriti, which is all the universes, or universes, and then you have Purusha beyond it. So as far as yoga goes, there is one and then beyond. Now from our modern knowledge point of view, we understand that we are just a small speck in the bigger picture. And people keep on wondering whether there is intelligent life out there and living beings on other planets and things like that. Of course, there is. And the fact that they haven't contacted us shows they are intelligent. I think they have learned from the mistakes in the past. And they realize that stay as far away from that mad place as possible. Because when you read many of the Vedic hymns, they talk of these type of beings visiting. The extraterrestrial type of stories are there. And in fact, the entire Atharvan Veda is said to be given by one of those divine visitors, who could have been an alien, for all we know. So, there are. What do we download? You see, there is something called an Akashic record. It is like, as I said, that triple U, that www, like you have a triple W, you have a triple U, okay, you created a new one. And everything that has happened, everything that is happening, and everything that is to happen. Now that's a bit frightening, okay? But let's put it that way. There's a storehouse. Now, this would have been very difficult for us to understand before the advent of the net. Now it's much easier, because where is the net? Who runs the net? Where is it connected? It's actually very vague when you think about it. And when children ask these questions, actually it's difficult to answer them. Is there a net up there in the sky? No. Then what are you connecting to? It's quite actually close to what we are talking about. That there is, at a different frequency, I'll put it that way. There is at a different frequency an entire, could I call it intelligence? We call it Prajna Loka. That is the term Patanjali uses. He says it is an existential plane of existence, Loka, which is Prajna. Prajna is the highest transcendental wisdom. Okay. So it's like there is a plane of existence. You don't see it, I don't see it, because it's at a different speed of vibration. It's as simple as, in this room right now, There are amazing radiations running everywhere, but we don't see them because of the frequency. The ultraviolet, the infrared, we don't see this, and then all of these are going on. Every wireless system in here is picking up something or the other. We don't see it. So there is this loka. It is a plane of existence. Now, do we want to call it another universe? I really don't know. Because for me, it's as if there are just these layers within layers within layers. It is like on one telephone line, there are so many telephone calls happening at the same time because they are at different frequencies. And so it's like there are these different frequencies, and now and then we have crosstalk and we pick up something. And now and then we attune to it. The more we lose ourselves, let me put it that way, the more you attune to it. If I sit here and say, I am going to say this to you based on what I know, I have actually shut down my connection to that. But the moment I say, fine, let it flow, what happens is you have that connection. I have watched it with my father to talk on any topic. Anything. I'm like, he'll go to class, and I've never a single day did I ever see him prepare by reading a book or anything. What was he tapping into? And my mother and I have debated this thread where we have had so much discussion and trying to figure out what was Swamiji doing, that he knew what he knew and he could do it the way he did. He would just be dictating, and my mother would be typing, and that's how the articles were written, that's how the books were written. And when I look at the book, I'm like, where did he get this information? He didn't memorize it wasn't memorized. And that is where I realized there is this what we call Akashic record. And it is said that Ganesha is the keeper of it. And because elephants have good memory, so that's sort of the tune. So I think what happens, and now and then we have a tendency to tap into it without knowing what we are doing. It's sort of by default. It's like somebody left the wireless without a password. And for a few minutes, you got a bit of Wi-Fi and then it got cut. It's sort of something like that. And then you find the password and you have permanent Wi-Fi. That's the closest I can get to that, because it's again hypothetical for me, because it's way beyond who I am and where I am. Yes, absolutely. With regard to a mantra having an om at the beginning and end, would it not depend upon your intention when you are chanting? And also, when you are chanting, the beginning om becomes the end as you go to the next. Very true. These two questions I'll take up first before the third one. Very true. The om is like the safety mechanism. But if your intention is pure, and I am a person who, I won't say I believe in it, I have a firm conviction in it, that if your intention is pure, the universe will forgive you even if you do it wrong. Okay? And there's a beautiful story in our scriptures of a hunter, Kannappan, who wanted to worship Shiva but didn't know what to do. And so, he went to the river and got water in his mouth and, spat it out on the lingam, plucked flowers and put them in his hair and threw them on the lingam, killed a deer and brought it and placed it in front of the lingam and said, eat. Like everything that you would not do in a puja, he would do all of that. And ultimately Shiva blesses him because his intention was pure. So we have a lot of these stories in our literature. And if the intention is pure, and that is why, if the intention is pure, and even if you give poison, I believe it will turn into nectar for the divine. That is where I am. So definitely intention is more important. Now when you are chanting continuously, what happens is the end of one Om becomes the beginning of the next. So there will be that pattern. You don't have to chant 2 Oms. So definitely that is a point that you would have noticed when we were chanting it, that I would not put an extra Om because we were going straight into the next round. And when you're chanting it alone, the Om, and again it is like, fire safety. So fire safety, you take precautions. Now, once you have a little bit of skill and if you are careful, even without those safety precautions, you can still manage the fire. Okay? But in general, you would say, take those safety measures. So I think the Om is like those safety measures. But if you have the intention, people have often asked me, I was often asked in Australia about this, what if we are pronouncing the mantras wrong? And I'm like, actually the divine doesn't care about your pronunciation. The divine is not interested in accents. So the intention is most important. But it should be close. Okay? It's like, if I want Shrikant to come, I should say Shrikant come. Or I can say, Shrikant come, or Shrikant come, it's okay. But if I say, Aishwarya come, he's not going to come, she's going to come. So, it should be some semblance to it. So, what I say is that, it's not an excuse to do whatever you want. You should make an effort that it is as close to the mantra as possible. And definitely the divine will forgive our problems because of language and our tongue structure and our vocal apparatus. So I have a very benevolent image of the universe and the divine. For me, the universe and the divine is a very benevolent parent. As we said, friend, relative, parent. So for me, the universe is, it's not like the Greek gods throwing thunderbolts down at you. It's not that type of picture for me. I don't have this God who's waiting for you to make a mistake so that you can be punished or something. For me, the universe, the divine is very benevolent. Now the very interesting question. What about karma in relationship to chanting for the universe? Very true. See, the moment you start saying we, your responsibility also goes up. So I must warn you that you do take on a bit more responsibility. Now again, I don't look at responsibility as a bad word. Many people think of responsibility as a bad word. For me, responsibility is nothing but the ability to respond in the appropriate manner. Just think about it. Respond ability becomes responsibility. When you respond adequately, appropriately, you are being responsible. You are able to respond. That is being responsible. Because reactivity comes from the spinal cord level. We have something in medicine called a knee jerk. And what we do is that we have somebody sit, and then what we do is we take a small hammer, not your hammer, this is a safe one, rubber hammer, and we tap the particular tendon, and there is that knee jerk reflex. Okay. Now, in case you're ever going to try this out, please stand next to the person, not in front of them. I have had friends in medical school stand in front and try it. I don't want to tell you what happened. They performed Utkatasana and what they were performing some yoga. Okay? This knee jerk is a very classic example of a spinal cord reflex. What happens is when you tap this you set up an afferent sensory impulse that comes into your spinal cord, is received in your spinal cord in the back, and this sends a motor response that then comes to the muscles and tightens it in such a way that you kick. So what happens is the sensory afferent, the sensory nerve coming to your spinal cord at that level, the lower lumbar area, what happens is that you then set up a motor response that kicks. So you have a sensory and you have a motor response. All of it happening at a certain level of your spinal cord. It's a reflex arc. Some of the signals start to go up, but for most it's here. These are the reflexes that we have. Different reflexes at the ankle, at the knee. You can put a cotton wisp and see how it delicate. Neurologists use this to evaluate a patient's condition. This is a reflex that is at your spinal cord level. You hit me, I kick you. You got that? That is the world today. You said that to me, I am going to say this back to you. You didn't do that to me, I will not do it to you. Where is all of this happening? Spinal cord level. It's reactivity. We are becoming a reactive species. They talk about reactive species in chemistry. We are a reactive species. Now, if just you let enough time for this signal to get up to this huge vein you have between your ears, what happens is you start to realize this person wasn't trying to harm me. This person was just doing it for my good. What starts to happen is that a bit of consciousness starts to come in, and then what you do is more a response. Whereas down here it was a reaction. And instead of being a reactionary species, we start to become a responsive species. And responsiveness implies consciousness, understanding. So the moment you start to respond, you are truly becoming more and more human. As long as you are reacting, you are still caught up in your subhuman. I don't even want to use the word animal. Animals are good, they are just themselves. But the inhuman, subhuman behavior is this reactivity. And the worst insult my father could give anybody would be to call them a spinal cord mentality. If he were alive today, he would be insulting even more people with that. Because I don't do that, but you just see it every place. There is no celebration at all. It's just that. Okay. So, response ability implies you are becoming more human. So, when you start to be conscious of what you do, the moment consciousness comes into whatever you do, you are becoming responsive, and the karma that comes out of any action you do in a responsible manner will always be something that you can deal with. Karma that comes out of reactionary behavior will be very difficult to deal with. Because the action you do, when it is a conscious action, the karma that comes is going to be karma that you are prepared for. If I have called you an idiot consciously, I know that when you punch me in the nose, that it is the result of me calling you an idiot, and hence I am working out my karma when you punch me in the nose. But if I am not conscious that I have called you an idiot and you punch me, there's still karma to be worked out. I'm going to get a lot of punches until I connect the dots. So the karma that comes when you start to invoke on behalf of others, because it is being done consciously, you will be able to deal with it. And the karma that comes out of it is going to be of an evolutionary nature, enabling you to grow. So it is not a bad word. The karma that will come out of conscious thoughts, conscious words and conscious actions, the karma will come. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, so it will come. And karma is action, karma is reaction, both. But when it is conscious, it is always going to be something that's going to help you grow, and so it's always going to be good for you. May not be pleasant for you, but it's going to be good for you. So don't be afraid of karma at all. Be happy when there's karma. Be happy when it comes back faster. But ultimately, remember, as Patanjali says, for the yogi, karma is neither black nor white. It's beyond that. So it's neither good karma or bad karma. You have to go beyond that. When do you go beyond it? When your action is motiveless action. But when can it become motiveless? Only when you are responsive. So the first stage is to move from reactionary behavior to responsive behavior. But then remember, responsive behavior is still in response to something. So then you have to start behavior which is pre-responsive behavior. I'm trying to find a word for that. Patanjali's sutras in chapter 4 verse 4, yes. On the creation of many minds. Patanjali in the Kaivalya Pada, the fourth of his padas, again I don't think Patanjali actually put them as 4 different padas. I believe it was just one long text that at some point somebody said, it sort of falls into these 4. Because when I look at all the chanting I learned as a kid, very often it would be thousands of verses, and you don't really say it as a chapter. But then later on when I look at some of the way people have translated and others, I see they have divided it into this part and that part. Anyway, that's a different topic. In the 4th chapter, the 4th pada, Patanjali talks about the concept that Nirmana Chittani Asmita Matra. He says there are countless minds created from the asmita, from the individuality. And he then goes on to tell in the very next verse that Pravritti Vede Prayojakam Chittameka Anekesham, that though there are countless minds, they all have as the root the original one, which means the Purusha. And then he makes the third component of this triad, Tattva Dhyanajam Anashayam. The purest of these is the mind that comes out of the meditative awareness. 3 verses that actually flow. The first part of it, he says, why is it that there are so many minds? Why is it there are so many perspectives? Why is it that each one of us who's in this room is having a different experience right now? Well, it is because each of us is an individual. Each of us feels we are our own entity. Each one of us has certain conditioning. Each one of us comes with a certain amount of baggage. That is all the asmita. That is all who we are. And because of all of that, the mind that we have that perceives the universe around us is influenced by that. And this is why we need to understand, Patanjali long ago said something that is said recently, that we perceive things as we are and not as they are, because of asmita. And very beautiful concept that Patanjali brings. He says, there are these countless minds, yet the master of all of them, the mind behind the mind, the master mind, is the Purusha. And that Purusha is perceiving through each and every one of these. People say, how can that happen? You know, if you were to take thousands of drops and suspend them in air, through each of them the light is going to be reflected. And each of them is going to reflect light differently based on where they are, even at the physical level. Now we don't just have physical, we have emotional, we have mental, we have all these levels. So imagine what happens with our minds. But you know what? In each of them you see the sun. But how many suns are there? One. The same sun is reflected in all of those drops differently based on where they are, their locus standi. Yet, when all of them come together, you have the beautiful rainbow. If you only had one drop, you don't have the rainbow, right? I don't think you can have a rainbow with just one drop. Not to my knowledge. But what Patanjali says is that all of these are conditioned. All of these are still prejudiced. All of these are not pure. He says the only mind that is closest in purity to the Purusha is the one mind that comes out of meditation. And he doesn't mean quiet sitting. He means the state of meditation. And I don't mean closing your eyes and just sitting quietly and saying I'm meditating. No, I'm not talking about that. That is concentration, that is contemplation. Meditation is a state where already you don't exist. What has happened in meditation? In dhyana? And that is why I prefer not to use meditation. Dhyana is a better word. Let's keep it separate, because I tell you, one of the things that really gets me going. Okay? Then a few things, but this is especially one. Yoga and meditation is the first one that gets me going. The next one has become yoga and pranayama. And I'm like, what a world I'm living in. I know it will not become yoga and asana because they think asana is yoga, so I don't expect that to happen. But I had someone contact me once to do some research, and she's like, okay, in this program we'll do some yoga and pranayama. And I'm like, she's an Indian, by the way. Okay? I cannot forgive it when Indians make this mistake, because they have the same genetics that the rishis had. And so they making mistakes is unpardonable to me. Okay, I'm a bit hard on that, but they have the genetic lineage of these great rishis. And by making these mistakes, they are doing disservice to the ancestors. Anyway. And I corrected her. I said, she said, yes, I meant asana and pranayama. And then the very next email again, and as we were discussing yoga and pranayama, I said, we are not doing this project together. I just said, I'm not. I told my Vice Chancellor, I said, sir, count me out. Someone who is so adamant, despite being corrected, and has such an understanding of yoga, I refuse to do a project with her. She's based in the USA now, doing somebody's. I said, find somebody else to do it. I will not. So when I say meditation, I'll go back to dhyana. Okay? The state of dhyana is a state where you don't exist. Please understand. In the state of dharana, concentration, you are there, object is there. In that state of dhyana or meditative awareness, you and the object have merged into one. There is no you anymore. And that is why if I say in my meditation, it's actually a bit of a problem. Or when people say, when I was in samadhi, okay, I have a bit of a linguistic problem with these things. I know what people mean, but it's still, I have to always be careful there. In that state of meditation, in dhyana, you don't exist. The asmita doesn't exist. And that is why he says the mind born of dhyana jam. Jam means to be born. Dhyana jam, anashay. The mind born of meditative awareness is pure. Anyway, those were the 3 verses that go on that. And it was a specific request on which this came out. For more, you can look at my book. Because even I don't know what's in the book. Beautiful. How does forgiveness work? Forgiving yourself, forgiving somebody else, a wrong somebody else did to you. Yeah. Let me start off by making a very simple statement, because I am a fan of Albert Einstein. My father was a fan of him also, so I think we continue that. Einstein and Abraham Maslow, those two guys are always going to be people who I look. Einstein said, you have to be able to keep it simple. If you understand it well, you will make it simple, and if you don't, the other thing happens. So I try to break things down into simplicity for the sake of me understanding it, and then the way I understand it, I try to share with others. So it's just forgiveness is a very strong human, indeed humane quality. Because the reactive species will never forgive. Forgiveness implies that you are able to understand the other person, understand why they have done what they have done, and thus is a responsive quality. Please understand, forgive also has in it give. And I was talking about giving today. You're actually giving a gift to somebody. Forgiveness is for giving. For giving. Forgiving is for giving. You're actually giving them a gift by letting go of something. Instead of holding on it. That hold, you are letting go. And this is why I always laugh at my pediatric friends, pediatricians. They go around the ward and look at all the newborn babies, and they put their finger into the newborn's palm. The baby goes, they say, good human being. All the reflexes are good. This grasping reflex. One of the first reflexes, as soon as we are born, we have, along with the suckling reflex to make sure we feed. So get food and get as much as you can. That's the message of the human race. When we come out, we are already ready to give me. I say, we test whether these are the graspers. We are the grasping race. And that is why when you give, you are going against this very strong, neurologically strong reflex to hold on. We talk about holding on for life. We don't say let it go. Holding on. We catch. We hold on to things. And you know the funniest part is when people are holding on to burning hot iron rods. Paining! Let go. You mean I let go? Ah. Why? The problem is we are not used to letting go. When you have an electrical shock, let go. It's a bit difficult, but theoretically at least. Let go. Most of us, the other day I was talking about people going and hugging the problems. My problem. They don't want to let go. Forgiving is giving. You are opening up. You are opening up to the possibilities that can come by letting go. It's a very good quality. It is very humane quality. Now you'll be wondering why I'm sort of beating around the bush here. Yes, I am beating around the bush. Because the more human and humane you become, the more vulnerable you become. I'm sorry, but you do. The more human and humane you become, the more vulnerable you become. I have a new student. Yes. Yeah. Hope it doesn't want to sit on my lap. And that is why I often say, I add to something. I say, to make a mistake is human. To forgive is divine. I believe that's the, to err is human. And then I add to that. I say, to forget is to be stupid. Okay? To make a mistake, to err is human. To forgive is divine. But to forget is stupid. And you'll say, what did Dr.Ananda just do? He created this beautiful cake and just threw it down. No. What do you not forget? The lesson should not be forgotten. Forgive the person and even forget the person also. The person is immaterial in the bigger scheme. Who did it to you? What they did to you doesn't matter. Not at all. But what you learn from that, if you forget that lesson, history is bound to be repeated. And that is why I say to forget is to be stupid. Don't forget the lesson. Forgive and forget the person. Forgive and forget what was done, perceived or actual wrong. But remember the lesson you learned so that you don't repeat it. Because by doing so, you grow. Every experience must be a learning, evolutionary experience. And that is why one has to be very careful, because it is important to forgive. But if you forget, you will end up making the same mistake again and again. And it's like going on and on one of those, treadmill or merry-go-round or a treadmill, and you're going nowhere. Now, if you have learned the lesson, you don't have to do that again. We have a lot of mistakes to learn from, okay? Why stop and go round and round at one level? As I said, the video game, multiple levels are there. Don't stay at one level. Get rid of that level and go on. But learn, remember what you learned. It will be useful at the next one. Again, what do you learn about yourself? What was in you that made that happen? It's easy to blame the other person. Very easy. It is the easiest thing to do. And that's why we have scapegoats and scape donkeys. Find somebody else. We always... What was my contribution to what happened? The moment I ask myself that question, I may find an answer. And by applying that answer, I may prevent. Again using may. I am being very careful. Conditions apply. We may prevent it. I personally am trying this every day in my life. I wish I could say I'm always successful. I am not. But I try. And there are nowadays situations where I say, no, don't go down that again. Learn your lesson. Don't take that turn. And actually it is useful. Because you save yourself a lot of pain, you save others a lot of pain, and you grow. But the bottom line, forgiveness is a gift that you can give. Don't hold a grudge, because holding grudges, holding negativities is, people attribute everything to the Buddha these days. It's actually quite funny what happens with the net. That every quote is either Buddha or Gandhi or Einstein. Buddha said this about Donald Trump. He didn't say anything. Buddha didn't say anything. But they often say that, a quote attributed to the Buddha is like, holding a negative emotion or a negative thought is like, holding on to a knife and thinking somebody else will get hurt. You're hurting yourself, not the other person. Even if it's not the Buddha, I don't think the Buddha talked about this, but he could have said something that may have come down the line and interpreted it this way. It's like I read people who talk about how Patanjali talks of 84 asanas. And I'm like, where? Not in the versions I have come upon. Some commentator on the commentary or somebody's commentary, may have mentioned something, and it goes totally back this way, and you find people, especially with the net, sources of disinformation are more available. Coming back, forgiveness for what others do to you, but forgiveness for what you have done. Now that's a bit difficult, because we always like to justify ourselves. We like to be the hero in our story. We don't like to be the villain. And so we usually justify whatever we do. And I think a very beautiful message that J. Krishnamurti gave, and my mother often quotes, is to observe without identifying, justifying. What's the third one? Identifying without justifying. There's one more. Condemning, that's it. Without identifying, without condemning, and without justification. It's a lot of vairagya. A gap is there. And start to look at yourself, and again, sometimes we have a tendency to be too hard on ourselves. I know a lot of young people who are just too hard on themselves. Life is not. You don't have to be so hard on yourself. So, what you may be perceiving may not be it. And so, we start to blame ourselves for things that actually we are not doing. And I have some of the young people, I did that wrong. I'm like, you didn't. Yeah, but I did it wrong. Oh. And one has to be very careful of that, because one is this towards others, but one is towards your own self. And that is why, please, see if you can start to have this objective space, the gap of objectivity. If not, find somebody around you who can sort of help you with it. The problem is the moment you have somebody else help you, you have to make sure they have a proper mirror. And it's not one of those warped mirrors that makes you either fatter or taller or distorted. People are very good mirrors. And in fact, one of the statements my father used to often make was he said, please get married. And he said, especially if you think you're perfect, please get married. And you will have somebody to tell you you're not all the time. I think it is a very good lesson. And because, we need people close to us. And again, you have to understand people have different perspectives and sometimes they may be warped. But try to find out somebody who's a sounding board. As I said, I have a mother and that's a big blessing because I can absolutely, unconditionally trust her perspective. And sometimes I don't trust my own perspective, but I trust hers in that. So, you find someone like that and, develop your own sounding board. You don't have to be too hard on yourself. How can I forgive myself for this? You didn't do anything wrong in the first place. What do you do with that? And usually this is the problem. There are people who do so much and then they don't even think about it. And you wonder about that. So let's not be hard on ourselves. Let's not be hard on others. We are all a work in progress. We are not yet there. So if I am not perfect, how should I expect you to be perfect? And if I understand you are not perfect, how should I expect myself to be perfect? So come on, we are going to make mistakes and there are going to be days where we don't do things the way we should or we are not able to do it. Let us analyze it, see what went wrong, learn the lesson and again say, okay, fine, Ananda, I forgive myself today. Okay, but I'm not going to do that mistake again. But if you start saying, I did it because, gone. Then it's gone. I think then, my father had another statement, he said, no excuses. And I remember, people would be late to class and he'd say, why are you late? Give them a blasting and they said, I had a flat tire. He said, why did you have a flat tire? Swamiji, I had a flat tire, what can I do about it? He said, why did you have a flat tire? No excuses. And it sounded harsh. Even though when I say it, it sounds harsh. But when you look at the bigger picture, you realize many times we create flat tires. I have done that in my own life. I remember at the beginning when I started working with my boss, one day I was late, I overslept or something. He said, what happened, Ananda? No, he's not a tough boss, he's not going to kick me, he's not going to punish me, he's not going to cut my salary. Yet, my innate Abhinivesha, survival instinct said, sir, I had a flat tire. I said, okay, no problem. You know what happened the next day? No. True story. In 1999 this happened, and ever since that I have never used an excuse of a flat tire ever again. I said, thank you Swamiji. That's Swamiji speaking to me. He does that often. And I said, okay. And actually, interestingly enough, I've had very few flat tires since 1999. It's not that I haven't had, but it's been, and most of the time it's been when it doesn't matter. I never had a flat tire when it matters, okay, I'll put it that way. Touch wood. Because, and I will never forget that because it was the closest to instant karma that I can ever explain, and it was just astonishing. The next day I get there, Ananda, sorry sir. Yesterday I didn't have a flat tire. In Asatoma Sargamaya, the Satya and the Sadguru. Yes. This is basically the Sat and the Sad depend on the sound that is either preceding or succeeding. So it is more the sound that is succeeding. So when we say Sadguru, it can be written as a Sat Guru also. But the Sadguru is a common way it is brought out. And I say you have to be careful it doesn't become a sad guru. In the Guru Stotra we have what is called Mad Guru. It's M-A-D Guru. I say be careful it's not a mad guru. So we do have a few things. But yes, in Sanskrit, just as I was telling you, the A and the U become the O. Some of these, it's like Tat Mahesha becomes Tan Mahesha. So it is very much related to, I'm not a Sanskrit expert, but basic things I've tried to understand. And what happens is that the succeeding word starts to have an influence on the preceding last syllable. So there are a few of these changes happen. And if you were to again split the word, it would be Sat and Guru, but it becomes Sadguru or Sadguru. And these are a few things that do come. And having gone through it, that's not bad. The few concluding thoughts. Is there any other question? Because if there is, we take it up. Otherwise, I just work a few statements in here. Yes, please.
We were having a discussion about the lineages and Swami Gitananda Giri or Tirth or Shivananda Saraswati. So are you able to speak a little bit about the lineages?
You see, what happened is when Adi Shankara, the original Shankaracharya, he revitalized Hinduism someplace around the 7th century. There was a bit of controversy on the exact timing, which is quite odd, that other things are known so well, but this is, and I recently read that he's even been dated to BC, which is interesting also. So it's quite a, maybe there were many Shankaras. Again in India, the tendency was for many to occur, and rather than the European style of Louis the First and Louis the Fourth, and we never had Shankara the First and Shankara the Second. So when we say Vyasa, it may have been many Vyasas. Could have even been many Patanjalis for all we know. But what happened is they sort of so went beyond their identity that they didn't separate it. Shankara brought out the Dasa Nami, the 10 sannyasi orders, of which the Saraswati, the Giri, the Tirthas, these are some of the Bharati is another group. So like Swami Rama, he would fall under the Bharati Dasanami classification. Swami Rama of the Himalayan Institute, and they come under the Bharati. So like there's a very nice author, Jnaneshwar Bharati, who has written some very beautiful work on the Yoga Sutras. SwamiJ.com or something is his website. It's a nice, he has done some very nice work. A student of Swami Rama, I believe. And of course, Swami Veda Bharati, who recently passed away in Rishikesh, a very beautiful human being also. So they come under the Bharatis. Now Swami Shivananda was a Saraswati. So the Saraswati order then went quite viral actually, in the sense that it went all over the world. And so you had Swami Vishnu Devananda, you had Swami Satyananda, you had Swami Karunananda, you had the entire series of the Saraswatis. Originally the Saraswatis were more Vedantins than yogis, but along the way Swami Shivananda sort of brought in a lot of the yoga. And people forget the contribution he has made. Because what happened is Krishnamacharya's 3 students, Iyengar, Deshikacharya and Patabi Joyce, they sort of took over, especially the Western world, with their stuff. And many people don't know it, though on the website someday I'll tell you a bit more of the inside stories. But anyway, it's quite interesting actually. They have it on the website, and they officially do say that the two people who brought Ashtanga to the USA actually at that time were doing the course with my father. And my father had invited Patabi Joyce to come and teach at the ashram, and naturally things then moved a different way, the usual story with my father. Anyway, but what happened is, this movement became so strong, so everybody started, Krishnamacharya is the father of modern yoga, sort of. This has become a strong thing, and Kaustubh keeps harping on that, and I'm like, okay, fine, in one way I don't deny it, because for good or bad, the modern yoga world has been highly influenced by these three people. But we forget the influence that Swami Shivananda had. And he actually brought in a lot of good philosophy, psychology, and techniques of yoga. And somehow that never really caught the fancy, except, say, I believe in Canada there have been some of his people continuing. And then especially down under in Australia. Australia really caught on with the Satyananda movement and the Shivananda movement. Vishnu Devananda, of course, had they still had the ashram and so much of work being done. Now, what happened is that there is the tradition which my father learned from his guru, Swami Kanakananda. Now, Kanakananda was actually a Bhikkhu. So, Bhikkhu, Rishi Parampara. And initially my father was as a Getananda Bhikkhu. So he initially referred to himself as a Mahanta of the Bhikkhu order. But then when he came down to the south, he became part of a tradition which is lying with Swami Kambli Swami. Jnanananda Giri is Kambli Swami. And so he became the 8th guru in the line of gurus, which is a South Indian Saiva Siddhanta tradition, which is the Giri. Now the Giri is basically mountain. So these were the guys who were always in the mountains, or maybe they were heavy like mountains or something like that. And so the Giri tradition was the tradition that he came into. Now if you look at it in another interesting way, here the tradition of his guru, Swami Kanakananda, traces back in a similar pattern as Swami Yogananda's tradition, with Lahari Mahasaya, Yukteswar, and of course all the way to the immortal Babaji. So there is that connection. And Swamiji's own yoga guru, Kanakananda, was a person who was a very well educated university professor at Banaras Hindu University. So he brought a lot of the academic, scientific, modern thinking into the techniques, which were given to him by his guru, Vivedishananda, and Purnananda before that. So then, of course, Swamiji, with his modern outlook, again refined it, and hopefully I'm not mutating it too much in again trying to take it forward to people as it would be understood today. So Swamiji became the sort of the middle bridge between this North Indian, more Bengali, Tantric, energy-based tradition and the South Indian Saiva Siddhanta. And in fact, when we work on the chakras, we have a combination of both, because we use the Mantralaya and the other aspects of Kanakananda's teachings, along with the Gayatris for the chakras of the South Indian tradition. So actually we use both in a way that has come. So you have the Saraswatis, which is Shivananda and all his tradition. You have this pattern. You have the Deshikachar, Iyengar, Patabi Joyce, who go back to Krishnamacharya. You of course have Swami Rama. Interestingly, I found Swami Rama's teachings to again be very compatible with my own father's teachings. So there are some traditions which are more compatible together, some are not. And I have tried to be as open as possible to all the traditions, in the sense that I respect and accept their legitimacy in their own framework. And what I feel is each tradition is legitimate within its framework. Problem comes when you try to mix them because many of them have contrary views when it comes to certain issues. But in general, I would very much Swami Rama's work with energy, some of his relaxation work, amazing insights. Swami Veda Bharati's insights into the Yoga Sutras are actually very deep. So that is the Bharati tradition from the Dasanami, the Giri, the Saraswati. Those are sort of the ones that immediately come to mind in that regard. In fact, many years ago, must be now, nearly 10 years ago, I wrote an article called The Geographical History of Yoga in India, or something like that. And what I tried to do was I looked at the different parts of India and tried to trace the traditions of that area. And I haven't updated it in 7-8 years, but it's still quite a decent article. It must be on our website. And it was at that point that we had published it in Yoga Life, and Deshikicha wrote to me and he said, Ananda, thank you for including us. But he said, I don't teach Vini Yoga. That is when I first heard of him not teaching Vini Yoga. And that is when our correspondence started. And I've been blessed to receive his blessings, including for the Yoga Sutras book, which for me meant a lot because his work with chanting the Yoga Sutras, I have borrowed a lot from his work. And it is a debt to him that I'm repaying through my friendship with Kaustubh. Because his father has given me so much that the least I can do is support his son. So it's... Yes?
Practical question. How do you cultivate a sense of appreciation in young children? And to not get spoiled.
Cultivating appreciation in young children. I think the best way is put them in situations where they don't have what they have. And then they learn to appreciate what they have. I think actually we human beings need to have that type of comparison, otherwise we miss it out. And I think, my going off to boarding school made me appreciate Swamiji Namma's work more. And I think again, being in medical school away from the ashram made me appreciate the ashram life more. So I think sometimes maybe the absence, as they say, what is that? Absence makes the heart grow fonder, something like that. I don't know. I think it's a tough way to do it. But this is something that I have struggled because it is inherently inbuilt into human beings that it's very tough to appreciate things when they are in front of us. And this is why very few children can ever learn from their parents. Very few husbands and wives can see the gift they have when the husband and wife are with them. And similarly, very few parents realize the wonderful gifts the children are until the children leave. And so it's quite ironical that people have to leave before we can value them. But then what happens is instead of valuing them, we start to find ways to justify and blame, and so it's again a very difficult point. But I think with the city center, what I have found with the young kids is one is a role model. That's one way, is that you have role models. And again, for young kids, who is the first role model? The parents. Who is the second role model? The classmates. Who is the third role model? The teachers at school. And that's how it's in India. I don't know about in Canada, but I would say it's could be quite similar. Now, if a parent appreciates, I think the child will see that and will try to ape it. if a teacher appreciates, I think the child will see it and try to ape it. It's very difficult if you are part of a classroom where there's not much appreciating going on. I don't know whether you learn to appreciate, because again it's and especially for the young kids it's okay. Once they get into the pre-teens and teens, it's more about peer pressure, and so then it becomes not showing appreciation is the in thing, right? So then that takes over. That's very difficult to deal with, especially if you have responsibility but no power to correct them. It becomes difficult. But I think in the very young kids, the only way we as parents can do it is that we express it as much as possible. And that is why I think when somebody does something good and we thank them, and the kids see us thanking people for doing something, they may imprint on it. At least subconsciously, if not consciously. So I think the least we can do is be good role models for the kids. And again, for people around us, the more we consciously be ourselves, the more consciously we live these teachings, I think the more the children will also do it. I wish I had a more practical answer, but that's what I'm trying to do with my kids. And just try to be the person I would like them to be. And I think if you can do that, hopefully, 20 years from now, Ananda can be sitting here, or Divya can be sitting here, hopefully. And if not, well, there will be somebody else. Nature abhors a vacuum. If it's not them, it will be somebody else. My father always told me that. He said, if you step aside, there's going to be somebody else. So just remember, make your choices. I think we stop there. Thank you for these beautiful questions, because I don't think any one of those questions was not good. And they are good questions. It makes me think, it makes me allow some new thoughts to come.